I am coming with part 2 of the Union Legislature in the series of our Constitution. Both these bills being money bills, the special procedure relating to the money bills shall have to be followed. It means that they can be introduced only in the House of the People, and after each bill is passed by the House of the People, it shall be transmitted to the Council of States, which shall have the power only to make recommendations to the House of the People within a period of 14 days, but no power of amending or rejecting the bill. It shall be at the hands of the House of the People to accept or reject the recommendations of the Council of States. In either case, the bill will be deemed to be passed as soon as the House of the People decides whether it would accept or reject any of the recommendations of the Council of States, and thereafter the bill become law on receiving the assent of the President. The financial system consists of two branches, revenue and expenditure. As regards revenue, it is expressly laid down by our Constitution, Article 265, that no tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. The result is that the executive cannot impose any tax without legislative sanction. If any tax is imposed without legislative authority, the aggrieved person can obtain his relief from the courts of law. As regards expenditure, the pivot of parliamentary control is the Consolidated Fund of India. This is the reservoir into which all the revenues received by the Government of India as well as all loans raised by it are paid, and the Constitution provides that no monies shall be appropriated out of the Consolidated Fund of India except in accordance with law, Article 226(3). This law means an act of appropriation passed in conformity with Article 114, whether the expenditure is charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or it is an amount voted by the people, House of the People. No money can be issued out of the Consolidated Fund of India unless the expenditure is authorized by an Appropriation Act, Article 114(3). It follows accordingly that the executive cannot spend the public revenue without parliamentary sanction, while an act of appropriation ensures that there cannot be any expenditure of the public revenues without the sanction of Parliament. Parliament's control over the expenditure cannot be complete unless it is able to ensure economy in the volume of expenditure. On this point, however, a reconciliation has to be made between two conflicting principles, namely the need for parliamentary control and the responsibility of the government in power for the administration and its policies. The government has the sole initiative in formulating its policies and in presenting its demand for carrying out those policies. Parliament can hardly refuse such demands or make drastic cuts in such demands without reflecting on the policy and responsibility of the government in power. Nor is it expedient to suggest economies in different items of the expenditure proposed by the government when the demands are presented to the House of its vote in view of the shortage of time at its disposal. The scrutiny of the expenditure proposed by government is therefore made by the House in the formal atmosphere of a committee known as the Committee on Estimates. After the annual financial statement is presented before the House of the People, this committee of the House, annually constituted, examines the estimates in order to report to the House what economies, improvements in organization, efficiency or administrative reform consistent with the policy underlying the estimates may be effected. Suggest suggest alternative policies in order to bring efficiency and economy in administration, examine whether the money is well laid out within the limits of the policy implied in the estimates, suggest the form in which estimates are to be presented to Parliament. Though the report of the estimates committee is not debated in the House, the fact that it carries on its examination throughout the year and salutary influence in checking governmental extravagance in making demands in the coming year and in molding its policies without friction in the House. The third factor to be considered in the system of parliamentary control to ensure that the expenditure sanctioned by the Parliament has actually been sent in terms of law of Parliament, that is the Appropriation Act or Acts. The Office of the Comptroller and Auditor General is the fundamental agency which helps Parliament in this work. The Comptroller and Auditor General is the guardian of the public purse, and it is his function to see that not a paisa is spent without the authority of Parliament. It is the business of the Comptroller and Auditor General to audit the accounts of the Union and to satisfy himself that the expenditure incurred has been sanctioned by Parliament and that it has taken place in conformity with the rules sanctioned by Parliament. The Comptroller and Auditor General then submits his report of audit relating to the accounts of the Union to the President, who has to lay it before each House of Parliament. After the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General is laid before the Parliament, it is examined by the Public Accounts Committee, though this is a committee of the House of the People having 15 members from that house. By an agreement between the two houses, 7 members of the Council of States are also associated with this committee. In order to strengthen it, the chairman of the committee is generally a member of the Lok Sabha who is not a member of the ruling party. In scrutinizing the appropriation accounts of the Government of India and the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General thereon, it shall be the duty of the Committee on Public Accounts to satisfy itself that the money is shown in the accounts as having been disbursed were legally available for the applicable to the service or purpose to which they have applied or charged, that the expenditure conforms to the authority which governs it, and that every reappropriation has been made in accordance with the provisions made in this behalf under rules framed by competent authority. This committee in short scrutinizes the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General in details and then submits its report to the House of the People so that the irregularities noticed by it may be discussed by Parliament and effective steps taken. All monies received by or on behalf of the Government of India will be credited to either of two funds, the Consolidated Fund of India or the Public Account of India. Thus, subject to the assignment of certain taxes to the states, all relevant revenues received by the Government of India, all loans raised by government, and all monies received by that government in repayment of loans shall form one consolidated fund to be called the Consolidated Fund of India. Article 266(1). All other public monies received by or on behalf of the Government of India shall be credited to the Public Account of India. Article 266(2). As for example, monies received by an officer or court in connection with affairs of the Union. Article 284. No money out of the Consolidated Fund of India or of a state shall be appropriated except in accordance with a law of appropriation. The procedure for passing of an appropriation act has been already noted. The Article 267 of the Constitution empowers Parliament and the legislature of the state to create a contingency fund for India or for a state, as the case may be. The contingency fund for India has been constituted by the Contingency Fund of India Act 1950. The fund will be at the disposal of the executive to enable advances to be made from time to time for the purpose of meeting unforeseen expenditure, pending authorization of such expenditure by the legislature by supplementary, additional or excess grants. The amount of the fund is subject to be regulated by the appropriate legislature. The custody of the Consolidated Fund of India and the Contingency Fund of India, the payment of monies into such funds, withdrawal of monies therefrom, custody of public monies other than those credited to such funds, their payments into the public accounts of India, and the withdrawal of monies from such account, and all other matters connected with or ancillary to matters aforesaid shall be regulated by law, by Parliament, and until provision of in that behalf is so made shall be regulated by rules made by the President. Article 283. Though our Council of States does not occupy as important a place in the constitutional system as the American Senate, its position is not so inferior as that of House of Lords as it stands today, barring the specific provisions with respect to which the lower house has special functions, as for example with respect to money bills. The Constitution proceeds on a theory of equality of status of the two houses. This equality of status was explained by Prime Minister Pandit Nehru himself in these words: under our Constitution, Parliament consists of two houses, each functioning in the allotted share laid down in the Constitution. We derive authority from that Constitution. Sometimes we refer back to the practice and convention prevailing in the Houses of Parliament of the United Kingdom, and even refer erroneously to an upper house and lower house. I do not think that is correct, not is it helpful always to refer back to the procedure of the British Parliament, which has grown up in the course of several hundred years and as a result of conflicts originally with the authority of the King and later between the Commons and the Lords. We have no such history behind us, though in making our Constitution we have profited by the experience of others. Our guide must therefore be our own Constitution, which has clearly specified the functions of the Council of States and the House of the People. To call either of these houses an upper house or a lower house is not correct. Each house has full authority to regulate its own procedure within the limits of the Constitution. Neither house by itself constitutes Parliament. It is the two houses together that are the Parliament of India. That Constitution treats the two houses equally, except in certain financial matters which are to be the sole purview of the House of the People. In regard to what these are, the Speaker is the final authority. The Constitution also makes no distinction between the two houses in the matter of selection of ministers. In fact, during all these years, there have been several cabinet ministers from amongst the member of the Council of States, such as the ministers for Home Affairs, Law, Railway and Transport, Production, Works, Housing and Supply, etc. But the responsibility of such members as minister is to the House of the People. Article 75(3). Exceptional provisions which impose limitations upon the powers of the Council of States as compared with the House of the People are: a money bill shall not be introduced in the Council. Even a bill having like financial provisions cannot be introduced in the Council. The Council has no power to reject or amend a money bill. The only power it has with respect to money bill is to suggest recommendations which may or may not be accepted by the House of the People. And the bill shall be deemed to have been passed by both houses of Parliament without the concurrence of the Council if the Council does not return the bill within 14 days of its receipt or makes recommendations which are not accepted by the House. The Speaker of the House has got the sole and final power deciding whether a bill is a money bill. Though the Council has the power to discuss, it has no power to vote money for the public expenditure, and demands for grants are not submitted for the vote of the Council. The Council of Ministers is responsible to the House of the People and not the Council, not to the Council. Article 75(3). Apart from this, the Council suffers by reason of its numerical minority in case a joint session is summoned by the Parliament to resolve a deadlock between the two houses. Article 108(4). On the other hand, the Council of States has certain special powers which the other house does not possess, and this certainly adds to the prestige of the Council. Article 249 provides for temporary union legislation with respect to a matter in the state list if it is necessary in the national interest, but in this matter a special role has been assigned by the Constitution to the Council. Parliament can assume such legislative power with respect to a state subject only if the Council of State declares by a resolution supported by not less than 2/3 of its members present and voting that it is necessary to or expedient in the national interest that Parliament should make laws for the whole or any part of the territory of India with respect to that matter while resolution remains in force. Similarly, under Article 312 of the Constitution, Parliament is empowered to make laws providing for the creation of one or more All India services common to the Union and the states. If the Council of States has declared by resolution supported by not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting that it is necessary or expedient in the national interest so to do. In both the above matters, the Constitution assigns a special position to the Council because its federal character and of the fact that a resolution passed by 2/3 of its member would virtually signify the consent of the states. Notwithstanding these special functions and the theory of equality propounded by Pandit Nehru, it is not possible for the Council of States by reason of its very composition to attain a status of equality with the House of the People. Even though there is no provision in the Constitution corresponding to Article 169 relating to the upper chamber in the states for the abolition of the upper chamber in Parliament, there has been since the inauguration of the Constitution a feeling in the House of the People that the Council serves no useful purpose and is nothing but a device to flout the voice of the people, which led even to the motion of the private members' resolution for the abolition of the Council. It was stayed for the time being only at the intervention of then Prime Minister Pandit Nehru on the ground that the working of the Council was yet too short to adjudge its usefulness. The most extreme instance of its importance during its career has recently been shown by the Council of States in the matter of constitutional amendment under Article 368(2), a bill for the amendment of the Constitution in order to be law must be passed in each House of Parliament by the specified special majority, and the device of joint sitting under Article 108 is not available to remove the opposition by the Rajya Sabha in respect of a bill for amendment of the Constitution. While the Janata Party had an overwhelming majority in the Lok Sabha, the Congress O and I together had an imposing majority in the Rajya Sabha, so that there was no chance of the 43rd Amendment Bill 1977 being passed, so that there was no chance of the 43rd Amendment Bill 1977 being passed by two-thirds majority in the Rajya Sabha. As its composition existed in April 1977, the progress of the 33rd Amendment Bill had therefore to be halted after its introduction in the Lok Sabha, since the Congress Party declared its intention to oppose the consideration of this bill. The opposition of the two Congress parties also truncated the 45th Constitution Amendment Bill, while in the Rajya Sabha, the Constitution 64th Amendment Bill 1989 and the Constitution 65th Amendment Bill 1989 could not secure the requisite majority in the Rajya Sabha, and hence could not be passed on 13/10/1989, even though they had earlier been duly passed in the Lok Sabha. This is all about today's part of the Union Legislature in the series of our Constitution. Thanks, regards.